These pathways and relationships control public use of public access. The producer's right to effect these arrangements is historically anticipated by civil libertarians in that part of the First Amendment pertaining to assembly. Remember, for all the times we talk about free speech, we forget that another part of the First Amendment has to do with assembly. This translates in modern terms to questions about the social construction of reality. And ironically, those manipulations of our potential for social interaction whereby assembly is effectively denied, unless you want to call what goes over here on this corner free assembly, and I'm prepared to challenge that. In Tampa, this denial arises from the franchise administrator's determination to separate the public interest as a consumer of distribution, which typically what people who actually are on the Cable Advisory Committee are supposed to be able to do. I mean, their competence is essentially they can turn on their television sets, and therefore their ability to analyze things is related to that aspect of cable casting as a receiver, okay, of distribution. From any easy recourse to deficiencies in provider service, the public may realize as eligible consumers of the production facilities promised under this franchise. That's us. To the left are located all of the legislation emanating, if we're talking about the county and we're talking about the city, this is the whole structure of legislation that pertains to the creation of this committee. So that's what these objects happen to be on this side. To the left are located franchisees and franchise administrators connected by dashes to their respective cable service providers down here. And two enabling acts creating the aforementioned THCAC, Tampa Hillsborough Cable Advisory Committee. You may notice that the gray box, not enclosing access users, also extends into the CAC box. That is, it's populated by people who are not ordinarily parts of public access, as well as a line from each government entity indicating the source of these citizens' appointments, which you may not really be able to see that well, but there are lines connecting the people in here to various parts of government up here. The enabling acts specifically enable the Cable Advisory Committee to straddle the administrative connection to franchisees, since these are expected to report their progress toward franchise compliance to the CAC each quarter. And I don't want to talk too much or go into this kind of thing too much, because these are probably very fine lines in the diagram and you probably can't see them. But the thrust of this discussion is that the advisory committee has, by special arrangement with a public access provider in Tampa, and in excess of any specific EA authority, presumably enabled itself to control through its Policies and Procedures Subcommittee the public's ability to develop programming at the Public Access Center. As an extra source for its authority, the guide has taken to develop the elaborate aneurysm. That is, this whole line that starts out with talking about us in one universe and giving us a new name and moving us under the local staff all the way back through the circle to finally having our one little old member on the advisory committee who produces eventually something called the guide, which comes back here and manages us. This whole bunny trail, okay, is our aneurysm. Redefining users as something called members, now under the public access manager. It has promoted the farce, as reported to you in the last end phase, called an election. It presumes to legitimize P&P's actions by including one access user on it, even though the access manager is P&P secretary. That is, in the chart, if we happen to, the access manager would be approximately here. Okay, the access manager is part of the same group that the Jones Intercables report to, and the access manager also travels all the way around here and comes up right into the committee without even being a member of it, and happens to be the secretary for one of its subcommittees. It's a marvelous arrangement. Is its secretary preparing its agenda and reporting its minutes. And finally publishes a guide to P&P. Mind you, not the P&P, but the guide to it, there being no other. Because naturally these people are not legally empowered to set the rules. So they set the rules, but they call it a guide to the rules, and that's how they get away with that. So what we have in advisory is a tiny runaway bureaucracy, being neither a board nor a commission. Remember, the word here, the operative word is committee. Being neither a board nor a commission nor an authority, it has configured itself to routinely favor the demands of the private provider over those of the public consumer, and serves only to legitimate the creation and enforcement of rules whose origin and implications it usually cannot begin to understand. Among the few exceptions may be those rules by which the AMC was invited to go run away as well, i.e. to claim to be the member's government by virtue of the mechanism of its selection. This year's AMC, and by that I definitely mean last year's AMC, has declined that opportunity, defining itself as no more than a CAC subcommittee established only under CAC rules and therefore just as and no more legal than they are. Last paragraph. Management has never retreated from its claim that the center is not here to develop producers. Their last come, first serve interpretation of enqueuing on seasonal resources is only the latest expression of that. Yet they go on to claim every seasoned achievement of ours as an achievement of theirs, all of which James Heck reports to government as advisory's achievement, never letting it forget that his committee is their committee, doing what they asked it to do. Someday, we and our friends in the naked but accessible public square will become effectively tired of all this, recalling Pastor Newhouse, quote, "The law was thought to be the mask of the lawgiver, the expressed truth of truth's source. But the giver and the source have long since departed, or so it is thought, and we are left only with the masks. The credulous are eager to be deceived by the manipulation of the masks, and those in the know have vested interests in continuing the game. But our heart is not in it. We have not the will nor the means to resist others who, neither credulous nor interested in the common weal, demand that the masks be played to their purpose. The ignorant who are deceived and the knowing who benignly deceive, perhaps also themselves, are no match for the knowing who acknowledge no morality but power." And with this, I will return us now to the wonderful land of videotape, and we'll show you a clip of my first presentation of this part of the diagram, even a year before this was shown, in May 1990. And therefore, Bob, if you will prepare to roll that clip, we will proceed with the program.